I'm going to give credit to Marcus Carey for giving me this gut punch one day. But he said this to me and I was like, he goes, man, you should do more. Like, you should give back. You should talk more, stuff like that. I was like, yeah, man, I just don't know how to get started. And he's walking into the elevator. Perfect scene out of a movie, right? He's walking into the elevator and I said, I just don't know how to do it. And then he turns around, looks at me, and as the doors are closing, he goes, it's easy. You just fucking do it. And I was just like, oh.
And scene. Hey everyone, on this episode of the Identity Heroes videocast, we're joined by the one and only David Lee. That's right, the Identity Jedi is here to join us and talk with us about his vision for the perfect degree in IAM and what that might look like and how it's actually a little less technical than you might expect. He shared some incredible stories about reframing failure as opportunities for rebound and resilience. And the best part is, the stories he shared, I don't think have ever been recorded before. So let's go ahead and give a listen to what David has to share with us. Welcome to this episode of the Identity Heroes videocast. I'm joined today by my co-host, Jerry Gable, and today we're lucky enough to have probably one of the most recognizable faces in identity, David Lee, as our guest, the one and only Identity Jedi. Welcome, David.
Thanks. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, welcome, David. So, Mark, I think we could just turn it over to David, right? And he'll interview us.
I was thinking at this point, the whole episode, we could just send it that way, and it's good to go. The shirt says it all, but nevertheless, for those of y'all who don't know, we're going to dig into your story a little bit more from a hero perspective. But the format that we've done with the video cast series so far is that we want to follow that hero's arc. And so you've shared a lot, and you're great at this because you share both as a mentor, but also in your writing and in your own production work, your story. But we want to take an opportunity maybe to talk to folks who you haven't spoken to yet. If there's anybody in the audience who hasn't met or heard of you yet, but really get that storyline of like, what's your origin story? Listen to some of the challenges you might have faced along the way and learnings that you've taken from those. The elements of aligning yourself with your super friends, your team of sorts. How do you amplify your own powers? And then guidance for what to do going forward. Not everybody has the budget to do all the specialized training that we might have or travel to events, but areas that you learn yourself. And so kind of taking our audience to that arc. How's it sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Cool. Well, Jerry and I tend to start off the episode as we think about this with the sort of tagline that there really isn't a college degree for IAM. There's a lot of paths. How we all got here. Yeah. Although there is a college degree for computer science. And so we did have
that there is
a computer science undergrad. That's where we started, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I'm going to do the Wayback Machine. I'm going to play back some of the roles that you've had since, so that our audience can get a feel of that arc and like, they connect the dots and go through it. So don't worry, I'm not going to go through all the companies, but really just kind of the roles and see what sort of trajectory we took. How's that?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. We'll do it.
The page is heavy. Got lots. All right. So, but as we think about the path that you took, as you started, with a computer science undergrad, you got out and you really took a software engineering role. You were focused in development. You were a software dev. You were a senior systems engineer. You had a period where you actually started your own business, the first of many businesses, I believe, that you started. Went back to become a solutions architect, to become a senior identity strategist, which just sounds so on brand, I gotta say. The director of strategic alliances, a director of product management, a chief troublemaker, which is truly to this day one of the best titles ever. A Jedi co-founder and president, and now here you are, you're a field CTO at Sapient. This is amazing. Also, we're worried about the path. I mean, was this a straight line? Did you think you were going this direction, or what happened along the way?
I mean, this means so much when you get older. Like this saying of hindsight is 2020, like means so much as you get older. Cause it's like when you play it back like that, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds right. There was no plan to that whatsoever. Coming out of college after I got my comp sci degree, I fell in love with programming when I got to college, right? So I wasn't one of these kids that was programming at 10 or 11, whatever. I liked computers. I thought they were fun. My stepdad used to build them all the time. So he took me to Fry's as a kid. And I was just like, wow, like you can just go here and you pick whatever you want and build a computer. This is amazing. Right. And so I kind of had this curiosity of computers, right? Because I had watched him put them together and I would help him build them. So it was like I wasn't really afraid of them. I just kind of knew that, like, okay, well, you give it some commands, it kind of does some things. So when I was deciding to go to college, it was like, all right, well, I love to debate, I love to talk, I love to argue. So it was like, well, lawyer, right? Or I kind of like this computer stuff. Let's go do comp sci. And so I looked at it, and here it is, right? It wasn't some grand vision where I decided to do it. It was just like I saw like I'd have to go to school and then law school. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing like more school. Let's go comp sci. That's just 4 years. I can get in and get out. And so that was the decision. So coming out of there, like I fell in love with programming. So when I came out, I was like, I just wanted to be the best programmer ever. And if anything, at that time, right, I was like, I'm going to be a CTO, chief technical officer, because when I was coming out, I thought that was it. Like that, you were it. Like you were the best coder ever at a company, and they would pay you tons of money to be a coder, but still have like this C title. That's how naive I was at the time. And so that was my goal. And my first project was just building some different systems in Java. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I kind of saw early on, I was like, well, this is going to kind of be the same thing over and over again, right? I'm going to keep having to learn new languages and kind of do this over. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll see how this goes. And so I ended up stumbling onto this project that needed to build this identity and access management system, right? And so, like, the rec for the job was like, you will be the main developer in building this application that empowers employees to request access and all this. I'm like, oh, dude, this sounds amazing. And I'm thinking like all the ways I'm going to build this thing, and like I get to learn new things about Java, and like, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it, right? So I get into this project, and I'm like reading all these requirements, and I'm waiting for my access to get granted so I can actually do things. Hint, right? So as I'm waiting, the lead architect comes in and he drops these two manuals on my desk. And there's these Sun IDM reference manuals, right? Yes, for those of you younger, at the time we had all this stuff in these things that we call books, and we actually had to like read pages to go figure out how something worked, right? Like there was no Googles and like YouTubes and all that and Reddits. We didn't have that. So he drops these things on my desk and goes, hey, look, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be gone for about 10 days. I need you to figure this out, have something up and running by the time I get back. Good luck, kid. Welcome to the team, and walks out. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. So as I'm starting to read through this manual of what this application, I was like, well, they don't need me to build an application. It's already built. So what is this? What am I going to do? Like, how am I supposed to configure this thing? And so that started my career in identity and access management, right? So that was the Sun IDM tool. I got that deployed. I started like debugging that thing and understanding the backend code and trying to figure out how this thing worked together. And so the way my mind works is I've got to understand the bigger picture before I understand one thing, right? Analogy I like to use is like, if you give me a tool out of the toolbox, I want to understand every compartment in the toolbox so I know what tool I'm using, right? There's a reason why there's a hammer in there. There's a reason why there's a screwdriver, right? There's a reason why there's, what do they call it? It's my favorite tool. I don't know the name of it, but like needle nose pliers. There we go.
Ah.
I will use those for just about anything. But but there's a reason why those things are in there. And so it's the same way. Like I needed to understand, like, why is this thing trying to do all these things? It's trying to connect to directories and application systems, and what is provisioning, and what's a role, and what are policies, and why does this matter? And so I just went down this rabbit hole of studying about LDAPs and access controls and single sign-on and certificates and accounts. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. So this one program can automate and control all these things. Well, this is cool. So I kept sticking with it, and I learned more about it. So fast forward, I'm on that project for a couple of years, and I'm one of the main guys on there. People are coming to me and asking like, "Oh, how do you set up this workflow? How do you do this? Oh, well, that's this, or whatever." And I just kind of stuck with it, right? Now, granted, this was in the federal government space, all those scary three-letter organizations. So the problem set was fantastic. For if you're a problem solver and a nerd like me, like the challenges were just absolutely amazing, right? I mean, they were frustrating because it was like, trying to, win a fight with, half your eye closed and a hand behind your back and turned around the other way. But like, that's the fun of it, right? How do I figure out how to get these challenges, executed, which is really fun. And so I just loved it. So I stayed in it. And from there, just kind of rolled from there, right? I left that job and then started doing, consulting work. And I would work with other intelligence agencies and things like that and helping install their systems. And, you just do something long enough and you kind of get good at it. And so from there, I was like, well, I'm tired of the government sector. Like, I kind of want to let's go to the private sector and see what this is like. And I'm thinking, right, it's got to be more challenging, more fun. Like, government was just very bureaucratic, very slow. And I'm just like, all right, I want to innovate, right? I want to move and kind of do some things, right? And so I went to go start my first company. It was a software development company. And I had the bright idea that I was going to build an identity and access management SDK, and I was going to put it on the mobile phone. And what I was going to do was put it all the way down to the OS layer. So that way, when you logged into your phone, right, you would log into the phone and it would single sign you into any application because all the authentication would happen at the chipset level and it would go out and then authenticate you. At the time, there was this chipset that had like the secure element chipset where you could do all your secure transactions and it was, cryptographically secured. And so the things came in and sent back out. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. But at the time, these chipsets were like, really expensive to get access to. So here I am trying to start this software development company in San Antonio, Texas, of all the places. I had a couple of mentors tell me, he goes like, listen, I think this is outstanding, but you need to be in Silicon Valley. Like, why are you here? Get the hell out of San Antonio. Like, there's no way like you're going to get this kind of done here. And one angel investor actually told me, he goes, I can't tell you the name of the company. He goes, I can tell you you're on to something because there's a lot of companies looking at this, but I'm going to tell you you're going to fail. And here's why. It's not because you don't have the right idea. It's not because I don't think you can build a team and actually do it. He goes, you're not funded enough. There's companies that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to figure this out. He goes, they're just going to out resource you. Right. So I don't think I've actually ever told this story in a recorded form. So
Hear it
fast forward
first. That's
maybe
what
about,
everyone comes here for. You hear stories here first. This is great. Keep going. I love it.
so fast forward a couple of maybe about like 6 to 9 months later, and Apple makes a very interesting acquisition. They acquire a company that has a chipset that includes a secure element, right? Which leads to why we now have Face ID and fingerprint scans. Well, it's fingerprint scan first, so Touch ID, and then Face ID. Because at the time, what I was building is how you were going to authenticate was a fingerprint scan. Now, granted, this is
Because
back
optical
2008,
rec wasn't even there
2009.
yet. I mean, I'm not to date ourselves, but yeah. Okay.
Like nobody was doing this yet, right? And so part of my challenge as this young entrepreneur is I'm trying to tackle this on because again, this is my engineering days where I'm just like, I don't need marketing, I don't need sales. I'm a software engineer. Those guys suck. They don't know anything anyway. Just give me a bunch of software and I'll go solve it and it'll be fine. But like finding the hardware, the chipset, and to do all this stuff, and then also like bringing in this new factor where I was like, you're going to have to biometrically authenticate into the phone. And my plan was like, all right, I just came from the government. I still have clearances. I'll work it that way, right? Like, I'm not going to try and put this out to the consumer market. I don't think they're ready. So lo and behold, like I said, about 9 months later, Apple makes that acquisition. Touch ID comes out, I think like in 2010, and then it's over. By then I had run out of money. I'd shut down my little company and I was like, all right, well, guess I better take my butt back to identity and make some money here because my entrepreneur chops aren't up to speed yet. So there you go.
No,
That's
that's
that's that
interesting, though.
story.
Just thinking back to your entry point into identity, was that just coincidence that your manager is going out on vacation and you get picked to look at Sun IDM manager at that time?
It was it was I will say part coincidence, but also part lowest man on the totem pole. Like give give the new kid like this because we don't want to deal with it. It was partly that like they were, and it was a small team. It was only three of us at the time, and they were developers. They didn't want to use this system. It was a classic thing where the business bought it and told a bunch of devs, here's what you're gonna go do. And they're like, we don't want to use this thing. And everybody's like, we can build this better ourselves. And so we'll give it to this kid. Like he'll go figure it out. He'll spend the hours. And that's kind of what I did. And then quickly I was able to, kind of convince them. I was like, hey, we could build this, but like some of this stuff is just better and it's already there. Right. Like the time we spend trying to go and rebuild this stuff, we could just deploy this and we could go figure out what else we want to build. So
Right, right. So, Mark, I think for our audience here, I think this is really interesting in that you just never know some relatively minor thing at the time, at the moment, you don't think much of. But like you said, David, looking back all these years later, it's like, wow, that was a seriously critical change of direction in my career that influenced everything after it.
It really was, right. And I love that aspect. You guys know that I'm a huge, Marvel nerd and just nerd in general with like sci-fi stuff or whatever. But like think about it as an origin story, like that really is it, right? Like that decision that day there, right? Because had they not purchased that, or had they just said like we're not even going to do this, we're going to work on trying to build it, right?
Hmm.
I've never would have, you know, I probably never make it into identity. I just could end up going down the software route and developing, and who knows like where that leads to, right? It's so I've done this for so long now. I couldn't think of any other path but doing like identity and access management. I just love it so much because of all the different things I get to touch with it. I still get to touch, business process and change and improvement and all these things. And so, yeah, and it allowed me to grow past just being a tech person too, right? And I don't think that happens if I just stay in straight coding. Because for those of you who've run an identity project, like if you've been the main architect on an identity project, especially at the times when I was doing it, I'm not going to say when that time was because I already feel old, but like there was no such thing as like project managers, right? Like if you were the identity architect, you
You
were
were it.
right. You were the project manager, the lead coder, the tester, like everything. And so I had a chance to develop all these other skills by leading these identity projects because I had to learn how to talk to business stakeholders. I had to go be my own business analyst. I had to learn how to sell to executives because I'd have to go into these programs and like say, hey, like here's what we're going to deliver. And most of the time back then, when I came in on an identity project, this was at the time where like 70 to 80% of these things failed. Right. So I'm walking into something going like, there's an 80%,
Knowing that's
right?
an
That this
early
is not going to
astronaut
work.
program. I got to be honest. Like, this is kind of scary. Like, there's a 50-50 chance the rocket's going to work. You hope it's going to work, but
It's like that was it, right? And I remember, man, guys, I've got so many stories, man. It's like I should write a book about these things.
I don't know. I mean, should we have like a shameless plug? Is there a book moment? But sorry, keep going. Yes, got distracted.
It was so it was a project that I was on, and this was probably one of the best projects I've been on in my life because this project lasted for like 2 years, and it was this really remote project that we did everywhere. So Dallas, Houston, Arizona, Germany, right? Like we were always at these different places, kind of running this project. But one of the guys on there told me, he goes, "Man, you got to look at this like professional baseball players." He was like, Hall of Fame is batting 400. That means 60% of the time you fail, right? He goes, that's Hall of Fame. Average baseball player, 260, 270, right? You're only successful 26% of the time. So he's like, just look at it that way. Yeah, we're coming into this project and it's like, man, we just gotta bat 280 and we're doing great, right? Like, so even though like we're walking into these projects knowing that at the time statistics are so bad, it was like, okay, well, what can we do to make it just a little bit better? How do we get to 280? Right? How do we get to 300? Right? And if we're batting 300, we're all stars. And that's really, unfortunately, the bar was so low in identity back then. Like, once you kind of figured that out, it's like, hey, listen, if I can just get you deployed and provisioning things, I've won. I'm a rock star. Like we can call success, right? And of course, I'm not built that way. I wanted to go and do more, but it was learning all of these things, right, in identity. And so having to sell this and push for different things. And when I saw that like companies were like, well, this is just good enough, and I'd be like, no, 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 we can do more. Let me explain. Let me show you how, like, if you automate some of your SOD detections, right, we can take away so many man hours of how you're doing these access requests, right? This is back then, which is why I will I will dig into anybody that tells me like I think access requests are a complete absolute waste of time. They're unnecessary. They don't need to be there. And I was like, you completely automate the entire thing. And people tell me no. It's like I did it with Lombardi Teamworks back in 2005, right? So don't tell me it's impossible, right? I did it back then when a simple API call and some JavaScriptlets, and I was able to automate access requests where somebody could go to an application, it would figure out like they didn't have access, it would trigger an access request in Lombardi Teamworks, provision the account, come back, refresh the screen, and they never left. And I was like, so if I could do that back then,
Why can't we do it? Yes,
you
exactly.
can absolutely do it today, right? But learning all of these things, right? I think identity just made me such a just overall a stronger leader, a stronger executive, because I had to learn how to deal with all of this. I had to talk to developers, I had to talk to business analysts, talk to executives. And I love that challenge, right? And so that's when I quickly moved out of like, there's so much more I can do other than just coding.
I mean, I'm hearing obviously all your communications background, the debate side. I mean, I think you still could have a chance at that law degree if you wanted to. But if we were thinking about like that perfect identity related degree, you did have the computer science background. And actually, Jerry, if I'm not mistaken, I think David's the only person who ever actually called, in baseball terms, CTO and actually pointed that direction. And you landed there. Like everyone else had no idea where they're heading. You happened to get there. Perfect degree. Is there anything else you would throw in, with sort of the mix that you've had, knowing what you know today, that would make an ideal candidate? Just throwing out some topics.
I don't think anybody would take this degree, but here's what I would do, right? Like literally, this is probably the worst degree, but I would take your first year, I would take you through all the way up to like basic computer theory. So probably to around like algorithms, right? Maybe I wouldn't do any of the math, the diffie-q, stuff like that. You need to know that. But I want algorithms, data structures. I want you to understand like computer theory. That would be my first year. The second year, I take you straight into an MBA course. Like I want you to learn all business administration. I want you to learn accounting. I want you to learn business administration. I want you to learn project management. Like that's that whole second year. Third year, you're going to communications, right? Like I'm going to teach you how to be a journalist. I'm going to teach you how to write. I'm going to teach you how to research, and I'm going to teach you how to defend. Right? That's your third year, and then your fourth year is literally just it would be all just kind of like work experience. It'd be like 2 semesters or like what's the other one like trimesters, however people do it. But basically, like you would have 2 straight semesters of I'm going to give you a scenario, almost like they do with like MBAs, and like you're going to put in a group, go solve this problem, right? And you need to give me a business case. You need to give me how you're going to go implement it. You need to go and get costs, right? And then I need to see a structure plan of how you're going to go execute it. You get 2 of those for that year, one semester for one, the other semester for two. And that's your degree. Like that's now you are ready, right? To go be an identity and access management professional. Notice I didn't say I'm going to teach you Active Directory. I'm going to teach, no, I'm going to teach you any of that stuff. You'll pick that up when you get there. There's tons of certifications and classes you can go get for that. But if you have those base skills, you know how to communicate, you understand theory of computing, right? Because I think when you understand the theory of computing, most of this technology stuff, like you kind of figure out. You know how to build and execute on plans, and you understand the business and how a business operates. The single biggest thing that kills all of us in tech really is that we don't understand. Like we're still those software engineer nerds, and I love us. I love all of us, right? That we just want to build the perfect piece of software. And we think that when we build that piece of software, everybody will love it, they'll celebrate it, and they'll love it just as much as we love it. And then we don't understand that for the most part, business people and the average person still thinks this stuff is magic, right? They still think we carry wands and we do spells and just stuff happens, right? They don't, where we look at it, and it's almost like the Matrix, we're like, we just see ones and zeros, man. It's just a simple, that's an algorithm, that's an API, that's this, that's all this is. That means nothing to the other average person. It's still all magic to them. And so we've got to understand the way the business looks at it. So that way we can go, okay, great, business, this is what you want to do. Let me show you how this is going to help you go and do that. So that's the course that I would build.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I love that. Instead of, just hardcore algorithms and coding and theory, for 4 years, and then you're like, well, I mean, you're an engineer, but you're not able to talk business. You're not able to manage a project. You're not able to talk to people, communicate properly with them, other than writing code, right? So I love that, and it is a theme, Mark, that we've hit on a couple times in this video cast series. Being able to talk to business and stakeholders is such a big part of identity
It is.
management.
Well, and from a journalism and writing perspective, David, you write about this all the time, about the business value of identity and being able to communicate it in a way that's not ones and zeros, but in a way that matters to me as, a member of the legal team or a member of the marketing team, where I don't necessarily speak the same, ones and zeros. Why should I care about identity? One thing I love, having read your book, having read and just listened to you a lot, is that you openly embrace failure. And this is an interesting segue, but bear with me. It's simply, to paraphrase and use your own quote of someone else's quote, Henry Ford stating that there really isn't such thing as a failure. It's just the opportunity to go at something a second time with a more intelligent decision process. Is there any scenario, as you think about the heroic gauntlets that you've run, aside from somebody dropping two giant, textbooks on you and asking somebody to figure it out in 10 days, is there anything else along the way that, from a failure perspective, that became a pivotal moment for you in your career that you turned into a true opportunity?
There's two that immediately come to mind. I'm gonna pick the more recent one. It was, you know, founding an ITDR company. Some friends of mine, we kind of get together, we talk about coming in. I wanted to completely like refocus identity and build a different, come at it from a different angle and perspective. And so a buddy of mine was already kind of halfway started. He goes, man, come join us, come be the CEO. I was like, great. I jump in there and I'm like, I'm ready, right? I've learned all these things from the last time that I've really kind of done this, ready to go do this. So, I mean, I'm typical like startup CEO, right? I'm pounding down each, VC's door, like doing pitch decks and pitch meetings here and there, going RSA, chasing these VCs around, and just, I mean, just all of the stuff, right? Long story short, right? It gets to a point where it's just not working. End up having to walk away, and I've put like a substantial amount of money and time into this, right? And so I look at it, and so I walk away and I go, now what, right? I've devoted like a year and a half to this. I don't really know where to go next or, what to do. Do I want to go back and like, do I want to go back to just like being implementations or do I want to go to product company? And at the time, like nothing excited me about any of that. Right. And it really forced me to take a step back and go, okay, well, what do you want to do? Right. And it's different from when I was 26 or 27 and I just had all this energy and I'm just like, hair's on fire, screw it.
3 hours of
I'll
sleep, fueled by Red
right.
Bull. You can just go. Just go, go, go.
Yeah, right. Like, dude, I can live on like ramen and whatever. Like, we can do this. Like, I'll go figure this out. Right. Like, I am just going to outsmart and out hustle everything in front of me. A little bit different when you're in your 40s, right? And I'm just like, yeah, I kind of like sushi and steak a little bit, and it's nice, like kind of having not having to figure out how the mortgage is gonna get paid. But the biggest thing is like, what do I want, right? I really had this thing took hold of me a couple of years ago where it's like when I started looking at and realizing that time is the absolute most precious resource that we have because it's this one thing that we get this amount of, we don't know how much that amount is, and we don't know how when it's going to run out, right? And it's not renewable. I can't get it back. And so if I'm going to spend the time, what do I really want to do? Like what gets me excited? What can I be happy about that I can invest that time in? And I knew I loved solving problems. I knew I loved doing things with identity. And I was like, well, I'm just going to lean into what gets me excited right now. And it's waking up every day and writing about this stuff or doing a podcast about it or like really creating these stories and creating this new medium that we have to be able to get information out there. And I was like, well, I started this media company, so let's just go with that and see where it goes, right? And I'll still do identity stuff and talk to them, but like, I remember I didn't want to do the advisory portion for so long because I was like, everybody's like, oh, you should just be. I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, why? I was like, because here's why, right? And I was like, because I'm going to be the worst advisor ever because I'm not going to do your bullshit consulting hours. It's all going to be firm fixed fee. I don't want to hear about your project. I don't want to hear about your like, I'm actually going to give you the truth. I'm not going to be there for 30, 40, 50 days. I was like, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks because it's only going to take me an hour to figure out what your problem is, how you need to fix it. And that's what I'm going to give you. I was like, it's going to be the no bullshit consulting. I was like, and nobody really wants that. Right. And my friend was like, yes, they do. Like, just
Exactly
do
what we
that.
want. And in fact, there's your company name right there. Is the No Bullshit Consulting. Yes, that's it.
And so I just kind of really leaned into like doing the things that I want to do that brought me joy every morning. And so that was a pivot about 3 years ago. And that I've just really enjoyed. And it kind of brought me, like the podcast grew and the newsletter grew. And I was starting to pick up different advisory clients. And like now all of a sudden people were reaching out to me and be like, oh, I've got this startup. I'd love you to, can you be one of our advisors? I'm like, who are you? Me? Like, I don't. Like, what? Like, I don't know. But then I started talking to him and I'm realizing like all this passion that I have for, like all these things that I've seen across my life and my career, and I enjoy doing that. And I realized that it's like, okay, what I enjoy doing most is teaching and helping and telling stories that help people get past where they need to get to. And when I focused on that and I learned how to just lean into like what really makes me happy, as cliche and freaking however you want to put it as this sounds, man, it just drastically changed my perspective on life and the things that I see and went after and the opportunities that came to me, right? Like the opportunity now, the field CTO, that was nowhere on, it wasn't even my bingo card for this year. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to continue to build out the brand, maybe do some more consulting. I'll pick up some more, clients. And then all of a sudden this opportunity comes up and I'm like, well, this is kind of amazing. Like, I was like, okay, well, I get to keep my brand, right? They're like, yeah, that's the reason why, like part of the reason why we want you to come and do this. And I was like, and I'm going to be an advocate for the customer. Like I'm going to sit there and tell them like I can help them figure out their problems, but you're okay if I say like the answer to your problem is not buying this product, right? Like they're like, that's what we want you to do. And I'm just like, let's do it. Right. So that was the biggest pivot, like really just bouncing back from that failure as I looked at it. And I've learned since then not to look at things as failures. Look, I'm still human. I get sad. I get depressed. Like if I don't, if things don't work out the way like it hurts, but I knew that like that was not, it wasn't for nothing. There was things that I learned in there that I needed to take, and it was a path that I was meant to go down, and I just needed to, have the courage to, dust myself up and keep going. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing ride so far. So I'm excited every day of what's coming next and how things continue to go. And yeah, the next 10 to 15 years should be really, really fun. I got a lot of big things that I want to do that I want to accomplish, and I can see them very clearly. And I'm seeing the steps getting closer and closer. So
Well, I can understand that too. Having you having run the gauntlet of all the challenges of a startup, trying to fund it, trying to get market fit and so on. You don't learn that unless you go through it yourself
yeah,
personally. And it just like I'm sure all these light bulbs went off, and now that you're just more prepared now for the next time you launch into that, which I'm sure is just in a matter of time. And but it's awesome of you to share it in that context. It's it was a failure in some respects, but it was a big win in many others.
absolutely.
And you're still standing. I mean, that's the thing. Like, again,
Yeah.
having read your book, and I'm just going to keep giving the plugs throughout, but like just and listening to you and as you presented and telling your story in the newsletter, you're still here, and every single one has been a challenge, but you just keep, as you say, dusting yourself off. And that's sometimes the hardest part, I think, for our audience is like, you think it's like one and done. I'm gonna have one big failure, my career's over, I'm not going anywhere. And it sounds like that's the opposite. Like almost the more failures, the more learning, the more clarity you had for your path.
Yeah. Listen, the one thing that I don't want to, I hate using the failure word only because I think we have this horrible, uh, this horrible connotation of that word, but I'll use it for this case. The one thing about failure, what it forces you to do is it forces you to take a step back and look at something, and you have to deal with the emotions, you have to deal with the hurt, you have to deal with the anxiety. All the things come at you. And what that triggers is our fight or flight response, right? And all of that starts to come in. And one thing that comes out of that is a very, very, very clear focus, right? So just in this last year, right, in 2 years, we've seen like massive layoffs across tech, things like that. If we I don't know if you guys, but I've had friends affected, things like that. And I've also been there, right? So it's like nothing gives you more clarity than going, holy shit, it's the 15th and I got 14 days to figure out how to pay the mortgage, right? Or, hey, like, you know, the kids are hungry and I've got just enough money to go get groceries. Like, hey, we got groceries this time, but like, I don't know where the next one's coming from, right? Those type of things when you have to start making those decisions. And I'm not making light of any of those situations, but the clarity and focus that you get, and part of if you learn to embrace that part, right? Deal with the emotions, absolutely, right? But then focus on, okay, I've got this clarity now. What do I want to do next? How do I want to control this? How do I want to not always just respond to this. You can't dictate life on your own terms, but you can have a plan and be ready to adjust because you kind of know what's coming. And so you can start to kind of put that in place. That is the read any book about any entrepreneur, about any leadership success, whatever you want to call it. That is the key. It's your ability to respond to that and get up. And I'm not saying it's easy. Believe me, there were days I was on the floor crying, like not knowing what was going to do next. There was days I didn't want. I just thought like I don't know. I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm just gonna go freak it out. Just go back to work. I'll just go back to consulting. I'll just go do whatever. Right. There are days where I woke up and I didn't know what to do or I didn't want to get there. So I'm not saying those days don't come. They absolutely do. It is those days that are the most important where you find a way to get through. I'm just going to send one more email and that's all I'm going to do today. If that's all I can do today, that's fine. It's that process of saying, I'm going to get it done. And then you'll look back and be like, holy crap, like, how did I get here? I made it. I'm still here. I'm still standing. And that's the part where you realize that if I can continue to do that, I'll find myself on the other side where I want to be.
I love that. And I'm just thinking like Marvel Universe, like as a thing about clarity and foresight and things. I'm just thinking if there were a character name that you're developing for yourself here. I just am seeing this path.
No, wait a minute. He already has one. He's the Jedi. Come on.
He is the Jedi. And I was just trying to cross, now I'm going to get all sorts of hate over this one. But yes, he absolutely is the one and only Jedi. And more. That's awesome. And here's an interesting thing also, Jerry, David, I'm going to talk about it in third person for just a second, is if you go through his CV and you look at his LinkedIn, one of the things that you'll find, so many people talk about their jobs and their past roles and all the accomplishments they had. If you read David's, it talks about the team that he worked with. It talked about the customers that he enabled. And it really speaks to that other side, having that empathy and that team vision. And it's noted. It's really cool to see that.
It is 100%. And also, I mean, so how much you give back to the industry already, David, through your newsletters, which I read all the time, and your podcasts and everything about that. So, I mean, you're sharing so much of yourself out there too, which I know the audience appreciates as well.
Yeah. I mean, and like I say, your humility, man, like this is amazing. Like, I'm with you. Like you got me. Like, yeah, it's amazing how transparent you are for us.
I mean, it's partly because there's you never realize the path that you're on, right? Until you look back and see how far that you've come. And for me, I leaned into this a little bit early, and I'm going to give credit to Marcus Carey for giving me this gut punch one day. I was at Cell Point, and Marcus Carey, we were doing some work with him in his company, and he came by the office, and we just got to talking about different things, right? Like, for me, when I wrote my book, he kind of I was already thinking about writing the book, and he kind of inspired me to get it done. But he said this to me, and I was like, he goes, "Man, you should do more. Like, you should give back. You should talk more, stuff like that." I was like, "Yeah, man, I just don't know how to get started." And he's walking into the elevator. Perfect scene out of a movie, right? He's walking into the elevator, and I said, "I just don't know how to do it." And then he turns around, looks at me, and as the doors are closing, he goes, "It's easy. You just fucking do it." And I was just like, "Oh."
And scene.
Right. Okay. Like, and I was just like, all right, like, instead of waiting for somebody else to be it or do it, like, I guess I'll just go and do it. And for me, what's important, like, so I graduated from historically Black college or university, right? Um, I grew up at a time where, statistics for young boys my age wasn't great, right? You were either going to be, dead or in jail by the time you were 18. Like, so a lot of the stuff that I saw growing up was not great, right? There wasn't a lot of role models. When I got into this industry, there was nobody that looked like me. Like, I was usually the only African-American person at any company. I'd be one of one, right? Hey, let's go to the diversity meeting. It's Dave at lunch by himself. Okay, this is awesome, right? So to be able to the reason why I share so much of this stuff, because I want people coming to this space to look and go, listen, sometimes it just takes looking across and seeing somebody that relates to you in some kind of way that goes, oh, well, if he can do it, then yeah, like, so can I. Or just to give you some comfort, there's somebody who is also nerdy about identity and they work in this space. I won't be alone or whatever. So it's like, fine, I'll write about it. I'll show it. And it's not because I don't want to be somebody's hero or mentor. It's just because I want somebody to look and go, I don't want somebody to overlook the space of, well, I don't want to go in there because I don't know if I'll be accepted, or I don't. that looks uncomfortable, but they'll look and if maybe they stumble across my stuff and go, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Like, oh man, he went to North Carolina T, or he's from California, or whatever. You find something that we connect to and you go, okay, that makes me a little bit more comfortable. Great. Right. Then I've done my job and that's what it's for. Because I think we skip over a lot about how much that is needed, right? Like you need to, as a human being, you need to look and connect with other people and see something of yourself in those people. Doesn't necessarily always have to be skin color. It's just got to be something, right? That's why it's fun to talk about the nerdy stuff and Star Wars and
We geek out about Star
whatever it
Wars and
is,
video games and all the things. Yes.
right? Because I think we just lose so much aspect of this stuff. We are human beings at the end of the day. That's it, right? Like, and we connect by telling stories. We connect by sharing interests. And yes, I get it's business and corporate and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, we're people. So it's like, I mean, you guys know, right? Like, what's some of the best jobs you've had? When you think about it, I guarantee you don't think about, well, there was this one hard requirement that I saw. You think about the people that you were working with and how much fun it was because you got to work with them every day. Why was it fun? Because you liked those people. You connected with those people,
That's
right?
it.
And
That's
so,
they're your
yeah.
people, right? It's, going to the Cheesecake Factory and ordering the appetizers and having that sort of connection. See, I
Yep.
pay attention. Yes. Now thinking about the people, like being asked to, do more with the teams that we have. Have you thought about ways that you're able? I mean, you write all the time about IAM leadership, and it's phenomenal because you talk about this human element. So I think you're almost uniquely qualified to speak about how do we help lift up all of our teams when maybe budgets are really tight and we just don't have that expansion ability to hire more. How do we elevate our team who we have today? How do we make ourselves better?
Part of this is, and this is little little bit of a teaser of who I'm going to tell you guys. You guys should have on this one. But part of that is, so you've got to make the best out of the team that you have, right? And so when you have that, let's say you look at something. I'm going to get a let's build a concrete example. So I look at something and I go, okay, here's this identity program. I've got 3 people. That's it, right? Those are the only 3 people, and I wouldn't ask for budget because I really need 5 because we got all this. We got to onboard, 700 applications in the next 18 months. And I was like, there's no way me and these 3 people are going to get it done. I need to get 5. And they go, nope, not happening. You got to get it done with 3. Right. So I can either sit there and go, boo hoo, what was us? We'll never get it done. Or I can go, okay, listen, now, if you're in a leadership position, now it's time to have a real heart to heart with those 3 people and go, listen, this is going to be tough, but we're all going to lean in. How do we all get better? Let's go find out. Like, we've all got to do more. Right. So we've all got to learn just a little bit more about this aspect. So let's go out, and it's so much better now, right? Like, let's go out and, hey, Julie, go learn everything you can about application onboarding. Go see if there's case studies, go see if there's best practice examples, go scour YouTube, Reddit, Quora, whatever you can, go find out about that. Mark, what I need you to do is I need you to get really good at business process engineering. We've got to find a more efficient way to do this. Maybe there's some things that we can do to reconfigure how these business process works to help us do this a little bit better, right? Tim, your job is like, we got to break these things down into different milestones. I need you to kind of handle some of the project management stuff. Here's how you're going to do that, right? My job is I'm going to go find any blockers that's in front of us and go knock those down. But I'm also going to pick up some of the development skills. So when you guys get this, I can help with there's some scripting or things we need to do, right? So in that concrete example, it's right. And it's just everybody's going to have to do more. So you're going to have to lean in and understand you got to break down your problem all the way down to the tiny bits and pieces of what needs to be done. And then go, okay, what skill set do we have? Here's our deficit. Well, guys, help's not coming, right? You know what I'm saying? Nobody's walking through that door to come save us. So we got to save ourselves. So what do we need to learn to go upskill? And then there at that point, it's like either we're going to have to do it on our own and we're going to have to do it on the weekends or things like that. Or at least maybe I can go fight for budget to go, well, maybe I can get some training budget if they're not going to allow me to hire more people. Like, that's the plan and how you dig in and how you kind of learn how to do more. And I would say lean into, hopefully the systems that you have, like automation is going to be your best friend. You get automation by getting better at business process. When you can clearly define what your process is and how you want to get from A to B, now you can automate it. And that's how you can start getting some of this 1 + 1 = 3, 5, 7 type of thing. Cause it's like, hey, I don't have the resources and bodies to throw at this. So I got to do it smarter versus harder. And I do that by fixing some of my process and automating. So.
Well, I love that you answered that question without using one of the latest buzzwords in AI. but I'm sure that can further augment what you talked about there. But
But
AI wasn't your first answer, so that's good.
because it's I get down to the fundamentals, man. Like AI is just a tool that you could use to
Yeah.
do all of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
all the things I laid out, sure. Could you throw them in the chat GPT, or could you, use like I've been messing around with N8N, right? Trying to build an AI agent workflow, right? But before you even do that, what is the thing going to do? Which meaning what? What's the process? What's the workflow? Like once I know that, then I can go and build it, right? So AI is just a tool set to kind of help you get there faster, but you got to have the plan of how you want to execute to get there first.
Before we jump into wrapping up just a little bit here, I am curious. So you've got, again, the project management background. You've got this unique blend that just makes you who you are today. I mean, that's where the goat comes from. How do we measure success in all this? Like you've also written quite a bit about this, but like measuring the outcomes of IAM programs specifically, or what should we be measuring so that we know how we're doing on all these fronts that we just talked about here?
It's so at the high level impact to the business. That's what you should be measuring. Now somebody will ask, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, I
Okay,
was just say,
cool.
say a little more there. Yeah.
Right. Every business is different. So let's figure out what are the so I like getting concrete examples. Let's go back to this example again, this team of three. And we look at it and go, okay, what's our biggest problem in IAM right now? Hey, like we have a ton of dormant accounts because we're still doing manual deprovisioning, right? So it takes us on average, a week to remove and get rid of the access on an account. So because of that, we've got 1,500 dormant accounts, right? Cool. So impact to the business. What's the impact that those dormant accounts have on the business? Well, we can go and do research and go, okay, well, one of the ways that usually people get in for attackers is through dormant accounts that have access that they shouldn't have anymore, right? Let's go look at that and let's put a risk profile to that, right? We can, and even if my company doesn't measure risk and have a risk model that I can use, I'll go make up one. I'll go research one just to give it a figure and number that I can go give to it. So I'll say, okay, listen, right, if we've got 1,500 dormant accounts and we've got 3,000 employees, we can go, hey, 50% of our accounts that we have are dormant and don't have access, which gives us a 50% risk that one of these is going to get owned in some way, right? So we want to reduce that. So now I'm going to take that 1,500 and say, we're going to reduce that. How are we going to reduce that? Okay, well, we're going to reduce that by fixing this 1 week process right now, because if we can get to these faster, we should be able to reduce that. And I want to reduce that by a magnitude of 20% per quarter. That's going to be my goal. What does that mean, right? So I take 20% of that 1,500. That's my goal for the quarter. How am I going to get there? I also have my measurement of time of my week so that it takes to process that. So I'm like, all right, now if I can just shorten that week, maybe I can get it to 3 days instead of 7. How much more does that allow me to get the dormant accounts down, right? Like, and so now that I have these actual measurable goals, that's what I'm measuring on. So, hey, we deprovision this many accounts quarter over quarter. That's a 20% increase in ones that we're deprovisioning. We're doing them this much faster. It's reducing this number by this much. We're bringing that risk number down by this much, right? Everything you do in identity, like that's the path you want to follow. Find what the business impact is and work backwards from there, right? Shout out to AWS and their whole work backwards. Just, as much as I didn't like it there, some of this stuff is really important. But if you work backwards from there, that gives you your playbook of what you need to go do and what you need to measure. And that's how you define success for your program.
That's a great answer, David. And because we're always looking at things to measure.
That was a moment of measure right there, is how you might unmute. But no, that was exactly it. Because so many things tend to be this knee-jerk forward thing where somebody just says, do the thing, fix the thing now, and we don't see what the downstream impact is. Exactly what you said. That work back of understanding what it is, the risk, and coming back from that's hard math to argue with.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah. Well, Dave, I mean, you've called yourself a Renaissance man, and you truly are a Renaissance man in all things that you do. One of the things I've noticed, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm just going to do it anyhow, is how incredibly approachable you are. I think that 5 years ago I saw you at an Identiverse, and I was like, and then each year I like progressed and talked more and more, and now here we are friends. But as our audience is thinking about ways they can educate themselves, what are you studying right now that as you're thinking about identity going forward? What is there any specific topic that you've got studied right now?
Yeah. So uh it's a number of them. So, but here's what I'll tell you. Like, so the main thing I'm studying right now is AI. I am just fascinated with it. I study everything from agentic to AI to the models and how that's growing. But specifically with that and identity is this idea of this like identity data lake and these standards around having a standard data format for identity. So Ian Glazer, shout out to Ian, this is all his thing, came up with this idea of like OIDS, right? Which is, God, what does it stand for? Anyway, it's some kind of data schema. I forgot what the OIDS stands for. Open Identity Data Schema. And so he started the Slack group in AdiPro, and I'm just fascinated with this idea of if we can come up with a standard of how what identity looks like, right? What are the attributes in there? What do we care about? And then I'm taking that and going, if we had a true identity data lake where we take this information and through connectors and ETL and create this standard identity data lake format that then feed into identity systems, right? So that's the area that I'm studying. I'm deep diving into all stuff. I'm looking at Snowflake. I'm looking at what Radiant does. I mean, I've known Radiant Logic a long time, but like I just have this inkling that we need to pull the identity store out of the identity systems. Blasphemy, I know, sorry. Like, but pull it out because like IGA platforms, IDP platforms, they're not ETL tools. And we give in those tools, you get just enough ETL to kind of do stuff. But as we're starting to look at more and more of this data that we use in identity, like there's so much processing and so much things that we need to do. It truly needs to sit in an ETL platform and kind of get cleansed first and then get passed. And so I feel like we should pull that part out. And maybe it's a better feature in one of these tools. But like, anyway, that's the area that I'm studying right now and kind of writing stuff about. I'm going to actually realized that I was supposed to post this the other day, but I'll post it sometime this week. I kind of came up with like a general identity lake architecture that I'm going to post out there and just kind of put out there that I want people to beat up and stuff like that or whatever. So area of research, because again, I'm a nerd. Just the stuff that I love to do. This is what keeps me up at night. Like I'll literally have this in the middle of the night and be like, oh, we should do this. Next thing I know, it's 3 hours later. I'm drawing architecture diagrams and research and stuff. It's a problem.
I'll tell you, I mean, we're lucky enough. You already did shout out to Ian. So as I think about, places that people may, self-educate, I don't want to overlook your own newsletter. Like the Jedi newsletter is amazing, and everything you published previous, like they need to go back and just archive, just go read it all. It's awesome. I mean, anyone else to study or follow? I'm sorry, anyone else to study or follow right now? We've got Ian, we've got Eve, we've got you. I mean, we're saying those in the same breath. I didn't even take a breath between those. So yeah.
Heather Flanagan.
ID Pro.
Yep. Heather Flanagan and ID Pro writes a ton of good stuff there. Kind of named all the others. I'm trying to think. Not quite identity, but Chase Cunningham, right? Dr. Zero Trust. Like it's not just identity, but he writes a lot of good stuff around just cybersecurity in general and how just the approach that we should be taking. He just wrote a fascinating article this past week that I just absolutely love. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
This has been awesome. But I mean, just like understanding all the things that you've been through, your path, how incredibly approachable you are. Like it's fun hanging out and learning from you. I love geeking out over this stuff. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you, David. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Is there anybody else that you would nominate to be in this League of Heroes that you find yourself in now that maybe we should go talk to next?
Stephen Washington. I will make the introduction. He is one of the best identity leaders I've met from the aspect of he knows identity, he knows how to build teams. And I think you'll really enjoy his concept and passion for building teams and why that's important. Yeah, I think that's a hero you guys need to get on the show.
Noted. Well, we'll take that introduction from you and can't thank you enough for joining us. I mean, it's for us, it's like we get to hang out and talk as friends, but your story is so unique and hopefully it really inspires a lot of people as they listen to this episode. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you guys having me. And group picture is happening in Identiverse. So we're going to make that happen.
Deal. Take you up on it. Deal. Jerry, thanks as always for joining and actually being one of my mentors, to be honest, as I've learned so much in the identity space, as well. But thank you for joining and co-hosting with me again today.
You got it. Anytime.
Well,
see you next time.
Thank you to our audience for spending your time. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode here. And as we do that, we thank everyone and have a great afternoon. We'll see you.